Hello, it's Kendra, and I'm coming from Palworld. I am doing my very first recorded video. This video is kind of a tips video. Um, I am currently, I currently picked my, uh, I don't know if you saw my last live stream, but in my last live stream, I talked about how my friends and I have gotten a server together. So we each are able to pick our own base in the world, and then we have one shared base that we're using. And I came up with a couple of tips on what you need to know and some tips on picking your base on the in the world of Palworld. Um, these are things that I looked for when I was picking the base that I am currently um, on right now. So I have picked my base, and there were some certain things that I had requirements for, and they helped me find this location. First of all, is that you are in an area that you find aesthetically pleasing. For me, that's important because the thing I like most about Power World is the base building and the design of a base. Yes, there are certain things that you need to have in a base that make it run smoothly, but there's so many places in Power World to put down your base that if you want something aesthetically pleasing, you most likely will find something. For example, I am here on one of the newer continents in Power World, I believe. I wanted something that I found aesthetically pleasing. This area is a beautiful area. It is, I'll show you my map. We are on the the southern continent. It's one of the newer continents. It is a higher level area, so if you are just starting with Power World and you haven't leveled up to level like between level 40 and 50, you probably don't want to put your base here. And I'll get to that in another tip. But there are plenty of places in the rest of the world that are have lower level pets around and you aren't as dangerous for you. But because I have leveled myself up to level 52, this is a relatively um, good area for me to put a base. And I'll talk about some of the other reasons why I picked a base on this continent here um, later in the video. But I am a fantasy girly. I love anything fantastical. Well, this area location I picked is very fantastical. There are mushrooms. There are these beautiful pink trees. The grass is purple. If you look down here, we have this beautiful like shipwreck with like trees growing through it. It's just everything about it is just fantasy and beauty. Um, oh, it's called the Frozen Coral Hill. But anyway, that's why I picked this location for my aesthetically pleasing rule. If you don't care about the looks of your base, you just want something that is going to produce you the most materials and give you the most benefit in leveling up and everything that like that. This may not be a rule or a tip that you might want to follow. There might be other things, and we'll go through some of those things in this video as well. The next thing that I think is very important when picking a base is also feeling like you're protected. feeling like you're not going to get raided by other animals, or like those like syndicate mobs. I don't. They if your base should feel like it's going to be protected. The reason why, even if you are a higher level, when your pets attack those mobs and stuff when they come onto your base, they can do damage to your base, which is something that you don't want to happen because then you have to rebuild things and you're using up your resources and everything. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind when you're picking a base. The reason I picked this base, I'll show you in a second, is we're going to fly up and I'll show you. And it's getting dark, so I apologize. But the reason I picked this base is because if you look at it from far away, it is up on a cliff. It's like a little plateau. This is my base right here. If you notice, there is there there's no way for these mobs to get up to me unless they fly up to me, which doesn't usually happen. Or if they were to drop down from up there. So this is a relatively safe base that um, I won't have to worry about mobs coming and attacking me from here because now there is area over here where other animals can spawn. Um, they haven't though, so I'm that's why another reason why I picked this location, even though there is all this extra area that is not a part of my base. Like if you notice, here's the blue line at the edge of my base, and there's all this area here. Um, that's something you want to keep in mind. When I built this base, I kept it for a while to see if other animals were going to spawn in this area and still come in and attack my base. It didn't happen. So I knew I was safe with this base being where it was. So I was able to put down my platform here. Um, I'm also going to show you one other example of a safe base in um, in another location. So we're going to head over there now. All right, we are now in a different area, and it's something I wanted to show you. This was an area that I was considering for my base, and the reason I was considering it is, let me get on my Frostallion, and we're gonna fly up in the air. Um, and I want to show you the reason I chose this area is it was on the beach and it was completely surrounded by the um, the cliffs, and the only access that anybody would have to your base would be along the beach. So you would be able to probably and like over here, this is just like a peninsula over here. So there's really not many animals going to be coming from there and the beach area in general. So it was a relatively safe area to put a base because it was blocked off by these cliffs. And you could even, if you really wanted to, put walls that go across here and here to prevent any animals from venturing on to your base. When you have a base, none of the other animals or none of those mobs are gonna spawn inside your base. They might spawn on the outskirts of your base and then come onto your base, but nobody's gonna spawn inside the circle of your base. So you don't need to worry about that. You just need to worry about people coming onto your base. And if you are relatively protected, like this area, it's a nice big area, big enough for your base, your PAL box perimeter in here, and you're nice and protected. All right, we are on our main base for this next tip that I have for you. And that tip is making sure that you are in an area where you can get a lot of the resources you need relatively easily. So this is our main base, which is why we have, and we, and my friend um, picked this base because of its location to some of the resources we have around here. We do have one hexalite node that reses over in this corner. I think the I don't think it's there because I think our pals. Oh, yeah, here it is. So we have this one node here that always respawns on this location. So um, our uh, our pals will come over and mine that for us and give us those resources. So that's right there in the walls of our base, and that'll consistently be there. I don't know how long it takes for it to respawn. But the other thing we have in this location is um, out here. And let me close these doors because I don't want our pals to get or anything to get in here. Now this is outside, so you can see the line of our base ends there. So this is outside of the protection of our base, which is why we have this big gate here, so that if animals do come in, um, we have this wall protecting the base from getting destroyed. Whereas this area, but we have set our server to not deteriorate over time, which means you can go into the settings of the game and set certain things so that your materials that you build outside of your base do not deteriorate. The default is that these things that you build outside. So, for example, this chest here and this wall here would eventually deteriorate over time. Um, and you'd have to rebuild it. But we have set the server so that that doesn't happen, so that we can have areas like this. So that's a consideration. Now, it's not available right now, but occasionally this area right here between these two torches will open up into a dungeon. And in this dungeon has, I think there's, no, looks like they've cleaned them out. But I have some in my inventory. This chromite can be mined in this dungeon when it's open. So we have walled this in to kind of keep the wildness out of this area, so that it's kind of like an extension of our base, even though it's not part of our base. And we my friend picked this location for this base specifically for this dungeon here, or it might be a mine shaft. It's probably a mine shaft. It's probably not a dungeon. And in here you can get that chromite, and it's a resource that we need to create some of the different things that we are making in the game. Um, Also, out here, just climb over this wall real quick here. Um, we also have some more of the hexalite nodes out here um, that we can mine, and so this is something that, like, it's good to have your main base by these these materials. Now they are not protected. The beasts, the pals, and the mobs could come and attack me out here, and I'd have to protect myself. So, again, that's why you have to be careful of your level in an area. You don't want to pick an area where the animals or the mobs are too high for you that you're not going to survive if you find yourself getting attacked. Um, I mean, you oftentimes can get away, but like you do have to be careful um, in where you place your base. I also want to show you another location. Okay, so this is a relatively noisy base because of this is one of our satellite bases, and we have this base. Um, we have this base set up for our farming. So we have um, our like farming animals, like our cows, and we have some chickens back here. Oh, we have some ore. Um, and we also have our breeding farm here, which it looks like my friend is breeding some pals for us, which is exciting because that means I'll be getting a new pal soon. I don't know what he's created for us, but he's very much into the genetics of breeding the pals and creating um, the the best of the best. And so um, we have that stationed over here because it's just like out of the way. It's not something that has to be on your main base. We have also um, these big things. There are oil um, there are oil deposits here in these locations. Oil deposits look like this, and we have our crude oil extractors here to mine that oil for us. So when we need it, we have it. And then we also have our ore here that is available. So these are all materials that we will use to create anything we need in our day-to-day life in Palworld. And all the but specifically the oil extractor, you can't just put this anywhere. You need to put it somewhere where there's one of these oil deposits, so that you can um, have oil. So we've strategically placed this base here because of these oil deposits. Also, somewhere they might have mined it down, but there were sulfur deposits here too, and they're now used for um, are like so they're materials that are specially used for our base as well. But both of those two bases were strategically placed for the materials that you can get from those areas. All right, now I am here on my friend's base. The next tip I have is for you to pay attention to the terrain of your your base. You want a relatively flat land. You don't want too much hilly land because a lot of your materials will need to be flat on the ground. So all of your farming plots need to be on flat ground. and things like that. You can always put up platforms, but he was playing with the platforms, trying to see where it's easier to see with the platforms where your higher ground is and where your lower ground is. So, for example, if you notice, these foundations here are pretty high off the ground. Not like super high, but like they are relatively high off the ground. But over here, if you notice, the ground is poking through the top of the um, foundation. Now, these foundations are all level, so this part of the ground is a little bit higher than the ground over there. It so keeping that in mind when you're building a base and when you're picking a base will help in the long run because when you go to put down your garden plots, if you've ever put a garden plot on an uneven piece of land, you'll notice that it kind of goes crooked when you place it. And obviously, you don't want your garden plot. I mean, it'll work, but you don't want your garden plot to be like half off the ground, half on the ground, like like kind of all skewed. So you want your garden plots to be on level land. So this is kind of what I mean by that. Over in this location, I built some platforms out to a higher area. And if you notice, the platforms are getting caught in the ground. So here's the line of his property. That means all of this right here is higher than the height of his platforms. And it just makes it a little bit more difficult for him to use this part of his property because it's a little bit higher. He's probably going to build something up above here so that that is not wasted, but it was part of the problem with this land. For him, it wasn't a huge problem because it was like right here in this tiny little sliver of his land. Now, if this spot was directly in the center of his land, like right here, it would be a huge issue because that would be right in the middle of his base. So being strategic where you place your PAL box is on your base and making sure your land is able to be built on and be practical is important. I want to show you another location where I considered putting my base, but it was not a good location, and I'll show you why. All right, so this is another location I considered for my base. I loved the beautiful blue water. I loved these rocks here as like I thought it just was like the scenery was very pretty and aesthetic. And then it being below these cliffs and not just that one little entrance right over there, which I could probably block off with a gate or something. This was a relatively protected area. And I thought I like actually put a PAL box down here um, so that I could check, like I could see if this was going to work for me. And when I put a PAL box down, I thought, well, most of it is on the sand, but they're like the the perimeter actually went out into the water. And I was like, well, that's okay. I've seen people build out into water before. So I figured I'd be able to put foundation out in the water. Like and I could extend in like so it would be like an over the water bungalow type um decor. Like That's what I was thinking. And I thought it would be really pretty out here. And I really kind of wish that it was a little bit of a bigger piece of sand because you cannot build when the water is the ocean. So it's like water between islands, water between continents. That water you cannot build into because it always says, here, I'll show you. I don't love that. I think oh, I don't have any wood on me. So you can't put like foundation below sea level. And right here is basically sea level. Um, Now, if you were building over a lake or a stream or something that was more inland, then you wouldn't have an issue because you can build into the water in those cases. But if it is ocean water, which I found out when I put my PAL box here and I tried to build out to create um, flat space over the water, it wasn't going to work. And so I had to abandon this place as a base. Now, if I wanted a very tiny base and I didn't mind that it would just be the sand area, this would be a very nice place to create a um, a more homey type base instead of a more strategic base, if that makes any sense. So that was another thing I learned about placement of bases. You cannot build platforms out into the ocean, which was something that I learned and had to change the location of my base based on that information. So those are my tips for deciding where to place your base in Palworld. If you have any other tips that I didn't mention in this video, share them in the comments. Sometimes I am new to the game, so some of the things that I've learned when looking for a base, um, I've missed. So you can always put them in the comments, which will help me as well as other people reading the comments, help them pick a location for their base in Palworld. If you liked this video, if you found it helpful, please consider clicking that thumbs up button and it really helps my videos get out to other people. And I am a new Palworld creator, so I'd like my videos to get out to other Palworld people. If you are new and have just joined my channel, welcome. Um, I do Power World content, but I also do content for a social world called Second Life. That's where I started out, so I'm just starting up my Power World experience here on my channel as well. So feel free to subscribe to my channel. I do weekly live streams. Usually they're building on base, or it might be PAL related. I always do a PAL preview, which is a preview of my favorite PALs that I've acquired since the last live stream. So that's always fun. I've already got a few for my next live stream. And what else? I hope you have a fabulous morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching this. And I hope to see you in my next video. Take care. Bye.